Welcome to Books, Booze, and Murder. I'm Anna.
I'm Alexa.
We're two besties who love to read and have an obsession with true crime.
Amen to that.
Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month. Happy Valentine's Day, since we're recording on Valentine's Day. Happy I can see the sun again, and it's starting to get like lighter, longer.
I know.
It's pretty nice that you like when you notice it, it's like, wait, it's 5 o'clock and I still see the sun. This is awesome.
I know, right?
There's something so nice about that.
Well, so when I started my new job last fall, I would get home. Hi, Luke. I would get home last fall. It's fine. And I would race to get home so I could get home before dark, walk dogs around the block, and feel fine. And now I'm like, oh, I can breathe. This is great.
I have like 3 seconds to breathe.
Just 3 seconds. That's about it.
Just three. That's all. It's fine.
All right. This is February. There's a lot going on in the world right now. We've said it once before. We're going to say it again. We are not a political podcast, and we're not about to start now. But right now in this world, there's a lot of people who work for the federal government in the United States who are losing their jobs.
There seems to be a lot of chaos going on right now with a lot of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just wanted to do a little shout out. Well, I don't know, shout out, but we want to extend
our heartfelt, not condolences, because that's not the right word, our heartfelt support.
Yeah.
For all those who are struggling with having to go back into the office / losing their job / holy smokes, I've been remote for 4 years.
Maybe. Well, we have some friends who work for the federal government, and I think one of them has been working remote since 2017.
Long time.
Yeah.
Long time. And she's never had a problem with working remote. She works wonderfully. She does everything that she needs to do. They just bought a house, of course, like almost 2 hours from the office, and lo and behold, back to the office they go.
Yeah. So they're going to be making it work, but there's a lot of people out there who cannot. Like they have moved far enough away and they're just like, I can't do that. It is not possible. Yeah. So our thoughts and our hearts go out to those who are affected, who applied for the job, waited for the job opportunity, jumped through every single hoop, especially ones that are on probation right now who are about to lose their jobs. So we just wanted to extend that. We are also, without triangulating ourselves, I think we've made it known we are located in New York State. And how do I do this? The plane crash that happened in Washington, D.C. with all the figure skaters and with those in the service, our hearts, if there's anyone listening or years along the line and you're listening, our hearts go out to you as well. So those are just things we wanted to mention before we go on in.
Like we're a very winter-based sports place.
Yes.
So that's a huge deal for us.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's that really, really sucks.
Yeah. So, yeah. And yeah.
Yeah.
It's sadness all around, but that's what this is for us to be psychopaths.
Yeah. I feel all that psychoticness.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. February has been
I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of over February.
Yeah.
I'm over it. Just over it.
And we're only in the middle of the month, so that's what booze is for. Am I right or am I right? Coping. Not a healthy coping.
This is healthy.
Yes, it is. Yes, I enjoy chatting with you every month about books, and that's what makes me happy. I will say, I went back to my roots, and I read a Nora Roberts book.
I saw you did that.
It wasn't my favorite.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, based in the 90s.
Is it an older one?
Yes.
Okay, that'll do. I understand why.
Yeah, it was Sanctuary by Nora Roberts. It still had like the thrill, but I tend to like go with the flow of storylines, and I've never been able to know who the bad guy is. And in the first third, I was like, it's this person. Even though they weren't involved in any way until the very end, meaning like their role and their lines.
Got it.
And then I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts.
Yeah.
I need smut in my life.
I know. I know you do.
And there was not any of that.
So you read 2 books in a row without smut.
Yeah.
That's abnormal
well,
for you.
Actually, Nora Roberts, there was smut in it, but it was...
almost like PG-13.
Yeah. What about you? How was your reading? Or your listening? Because you do a lot of audiobooks.
I try to do a lot more audiobooks. Just because I don't have time to read right now. I literally get home. Like I was telling my coworkers this. I have not been home before 6:30 any single night this week. Any single night this week, I have not been home before 6:30.
Life of a teacher?
Yeah. There was a lot of stuff going on with that. I hate this sometimes.
Yeah.
But just like being a teacher, being involved in other things outside of being a teacher, and just life's getting you down. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking this time that we have to talk about something that makes us happy.
We're trying.
And if you're like, what is that boom, boom, boom sound? That's Luke being silly.
That's my 90-pound hound mix behemoth.
Yep.
Being a jackwagon.
So we apologize. We'll make it work.
I'm not sorry. Oh, by the way, I figured out a way to make that red, so give me a second.
Okay. So if you follow us on Instagram, you know that we post a lot of our stuff on the gram, so you can technically drink with us when you're ready to listen to our episodes. And Alexa's decided that she wants to kill me. She is currently stirring in grenadine into a drink that she made to go along with the drink we posted, and that was her kind of clinking it around. But you know that our drink this month is starting off with a jello shot. And Alexa, you're trying to kill me.
No, I'm not.
So, backstory of why I say, Alexa, you're trying to kill me. We have a parade that happens in our town every year. And I want to say at least 6 or 7 years ago, I did jello shots. And it got to the point where I looked at, I think he was just my boyfriend at the time, now husband. And I go, I don't feel good. I need to go. And with his arms extended out in front of him on my shoulders, he pushed me out of the bar we were at, walked home, and I was sick and I almost missed the parade the next day. And
that's it for you, yo.
You're lucky I love you because I have not had a single jello shot since.
You're going to love that, by the way. And of course, I had all the good intentions of making a really pretty pink jello shot in like a little lemon wedge.
Yeah.
It was literally going to be all the good intentions. But again, like, life got in the way and I didn't get home until 6:30 any night. And then all of a sudden it was 7:00 last night. And I was like,
oh shit.
I did not prep anything. I don't have anything. I am fucked. Plan B.
Well,
I'm making a pink drink.
I mean, I support that decision wholeheartedly. But I'm also like, you're the one that comes up with these drinks. I'm just going to go with the flow, whatever's easiest for you. And if it means I'm going to do a jello shot when we record, I do a jello shot when we record.
It's going to be great.
Fuck you, bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
It's going to be great. It's all good.
All right. So, I have a jello shot in front of me and I have a drink. So what are we consuming this month? I know that you did on the gram, but just for people who are not on the gram.
So for what I posted on the gram, this was like, this was actually a pretty tough, this was like a tough book to match a drink with. So I'm like, you know what? We're recording on Valentine's Day. I'm making a pink drink. I don't give a fuck. So originally I was going to make pink lemonade jello shots and it was going to make like a good portion of jello shots.
Yeah.
And of course the best of intentions are fucked.
You're good.
So these jello shots, I have a red jello shot. I don't even remember what flavor it is right now. And you have a pink drink that is a packet of the Insta lemonade with water and the Pink Whitney. And then I added a little bit of grenadine to make it pink and some glitter.
Cool. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, bitches.
And you'll understand in a moment why this book was difficult to match a drink with.
Oh my fucking God. So,
as I said, do we want to like discuss this book a little bit before I dive into the nitty gritty of it?
Yes. I officially fired myself
from picking any books ever.
I fired myself because I DNF'd this book. And I do that.
Like not even 100 pages in, I think.
I managed 100 pages in 5 days.
Okay.
Which is very slow for me.
It's very slow for you.
And it got to the point where I was skimming it and I was like, I legitimately cannot do this.
There's a reason that I listened to this book.
Yeah.
As I was going here, there, and everywhere.
I started listening to the audiobook because I didn't have the library version in front of me yet. Mm-hmm. And I will say, I don't remember her name, but the narrator for this book had the most amazing voice.
She had a really good voice. Mm-hmm. Like she had a great, like you jumped into the shoes of the book.
Yeah,
it was good. Yeah. I did like how she was reading it. It was a little slow at times. Even just her, like the book was slow in general. Mm-hmm. Like let's be real about that. Let's be very honest. Sorry for anyone who really liked this book. This book was slow.
Yeah, slow pace. Absolutely.
Very slow, dragged out, very, very like backstory. And you'll find out in a minute what we're actually talking about. But even her voice was sometimes almost like too slow for me. It was just very ba-boom, 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 I felt. Like there wasn't a lot of inflection between scenes.
Well, so when I DNF'd it, I reached out to you and I was like, I am so sorry. Like, I cannot do this. Mm-hmm. And we had a little bit of a conversation. And I think you described it perfectly. So it's like, imagine reading a book and you're going in a straight line. The way that this was written was like it veered way off into left field or way off in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. And it was like, what's your goddamn point?
Especially like right in the very beginning, it starts way, way, way long ago. So like, saying that, let's just dive into it.
Yes, let's dive in. You did a wonderful summary where I was like, oh, you did a really good job.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So this book was actually very fascinating. Again, I'm glad that I listened to it. I'm glad that I took the time to listen to it. I'm glad that this was months ago that I listened to it, quite honestly. So this is a fascinating book that takes place in 2 parts. It is based on the true story of one of the first female Black attorneys in New York City that you've probably never heard of. That was taken straight from the book. It was not my words. Written by Stephen Carter, he portrays the story of his grandmother, Eunice Carter, from his family's point of view. Excuse me.
Nice push.
Thank you. The first part of this book tells the story of Eunice's past, growing up, and what she came from starting in the late 1800s up until the notorious case of Lucky Luciano, whom she helped bring to justice. So let's start our recap there. Eunice was the granddaughter of 3 slaves and 1 free Black Canadian. Those couples had Eunice's parents, who were both activists for the Black community. They traveled all over the world, even after losing 2 children early on. After the loss of the other 2 children, they had Eunice and her brother Alpheus. Both kids were sent away to boarding school early due to their parents' travels and received top-tier education for any child of that time period. Eunice's father ended up being extremely sick with tuberculosis and traveled to the Adirondack Park to get some fresh mountain air, which was believed to be healing for patients with TB. Eunice visited her father often from Smith University by taking the train up and visiting. He did eventually pass, and Eunice's mother started seeing another man. Both believed the other had money, married, but it was short-lived, and they parted ways, which was like, that was a weird thing where I was like, why was that added in there? Anyway.
I agree.
So Eunice was a stellar student who graduated from Smith College summa cum laude, while her brother seemed to be in with the Communist Party of the time. Now, it is alluded to that Eunice and her mother were not exceptionally close due to the time she spent away from her mother and father. This contributes to her lack of a relationship with her own son after she marries. We also see that her marriage is not exactly a happy one or a faithful one, but as was expected in the mid-1950s, couples still stayed together for the sake of their children. But here's how Eunice was a key player in taking down the notorious crime boss, Lucky Luciano. So I just gave you like the entire backstory that was like the first third of the book. So you can understand how it's like if you didn't get past the first third, it was kind of like, what is the point of this?
That was me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lucky was in charge of the crime in New York City, and he has a system where he thought he would never get caught. Like, he totally thought he was foolproof. He had lower level people covering for higher level people. The prostitutes that worked for him were tight-lipped, and he got his people out of jail when they seemed to catch themselves in a tight spot. He took care of his ranks of people, and they took care of him. So Eunice had to help her boss find a workaround to get to Lucky and bring down his entire empire. She figured out how to perform all the raids in such a way that Lucky's people were not going to get out of jail like they had in the past, because everybody was caught at once. I was like, oh, that's very smart. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely brilliant and must have been extremely time-consuming. But Eunice and her team, led by the prosecutor, were able to pull it off and put Luciano away. Now, this is just the first half of the book. Obviously, the trial went on a lot longer. There were like 2 separate raids, but both kind of like the same idea, where it was, we got to get all these people that are lower levels. And then that's when they figured out, oh, they have like middle level people that are getting out all the lower level people. So it's like they had to do a separate raid to get even more of it. Now, I actually thought the second part of this book was even more fascinating.
Oh.
Personally, I thought it was really cool because, yes, she was this key prosecutor, but then, so I'll just keep reading. So now the second part of this book comes after the trial and talks about everything else that happened up until Eunice's late years. After the Luciano case, the district attorney ran for president. What an honor that must have been, and with Eunice as one of his key members. Thomas Dewey was the one to hire her and bring her in and attempted to bring her all the way to the top with him. Unfortunately, Dewey lost the election to Harry Truman in 1984 in one of the biggest upsets in election history. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that was what I thought was like, oh, that's really cool, because I remember learning about it in American history in like 7th grade. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, wait, I remember this. Why did I not hear about like all the other people? It's like you only hear about the president and the vice president. You don't hear about all the cabinet members. I'm like, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So this was the first election after Roosevelt, the first election after World War II, and the first election where campaigns were televised. This was a...
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
84 or was it?
1948.
Okay, 1948.
Yeah, oh yeah. 84. Not 84. I said 48.
Okay.
I know I said 48.
Holy shit, the jello shot's already...
It's already hitting you that hard, bitch?
I didn't think it was. But
wow.
I was like, wait, I thought I heard 1984.
No, okay, not 84.
1948. That makes a lot more sense.
That makes a lot more sense
all right,
now.
Keep quick. I apologize.
That's okay. It's all good. So this was a big change of the Guards' point in history, where there were African-American voters, organized labor, and the South no longer had full control over the Democratic Party. It seemed that as soon as Dewey lost the election, things could not go right for Eunice Carter either. Her mentor started to alienate her, and it was believed that Eunice was blacklisted because of her brother Alpheus's involvement in the Communist Party.
Well, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Alpheus was known to jump from one wife to the next, dating the next wife before the previous marriage was even finalized. Even though Eunice did not associate with her brother or his ideals, she was still connected with him through blood, and that was enough for some people to disregard her. She also struggled in her loveless marriage, but stayed with her adulterous husband for her son, whom she was not close to. It seems that nothing could go right for Eunice. She was put in charge of a different area of court, but was a pioneer in reforms for women's and child's rights within the courts of New York City that we still have implemented today. She was taken off the crime beat and moved to this sector after her new boss was hired, and it seemed like this was a move she was not fond of. She liked her position working with organized crime, but whether it was a necessity or someone thought she was best for the job, it was not necessarily a welcome change. It seemed the second half of this book was written in the manner to have Eunice just slip into the background, even after the biggest crime bust in history, her boss in the front running for presidency, where she might have been a key cabinet member, and then it's literally all just goes away. Eventually, she finished off her career in great standings with the courts, no thanks to her brother and his devious nature, and reconciled with her mentor, but it seems they were not close after that encounter. Overall, Eunice Hunting Carter seemed to be a remarkable woman that accomplished amazing things during her time, more than most people can say for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
So it is an important story. It's a great story to listen to. Again,
I didn't like the presentation.
Again, sorry, Stephen Carter. I know this is important. Yeah. And it's a lot of details, but trying to get through it was hard.
So with my background in media production and then reporting, it was always ingrained into me that when you're writing something so important and its details, kind of like this content, it's so important to write it out in a way where Joe Schmo on the street can understand it.
Right.
And I didn't think that this was the case. And if I remember correctly, isn't he like a professor or something? Like very highly educated individual.
I think you're right. And like that doesn't surprise me.
So I feel like it's so clear that so much research was put into it. Mm-hmm. Because holding the actual book, like maybe a quarter of it, like a significant amount, mm-hmm. was sources for all of his notes. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I can't take away from the amount of research he put into his family, mm-hmm. but I'm also like, dude, if you really want your mom's story out there, grandma's story out there, like, you're not really helping the case.
Right.
So I guess like I do have some questions, but you also listened to this last summer. Do you remember much, or is your brain like, I'm fried?
I was about to say, ask me the question and I'll say yes, no, or maybe.
So I guess my question is, how did she get noticed for her job as a prosecutor? Do you remember?
I feel like, if I can remember this correctly, she was in school and she was just kind of like, I feel like she was one of the very few like females that were in that field, obviously. And that was a huge accomplishment for anyone of that time. But I think she was like one of two females, if not the only female on that team. And so and I think for women of that time, they just had to work extra hard to be noticed, even just as much as the men.
Yeah.
So I think she just did that. She literally just nose to the grind and kept pushing it.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, is there were a lot of other people that were making other suggestions. And she's like, no, we have to do this. Mm-hmm. No, we have to do this.
Yeah.
No, this is what we have to do. Listen to me. You have to do this.
And it's so insulting to know that in the aftermath, she was just shoved to the background.
Yeah.
That infuriating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely infuriating.
Yeah.
And then was there much about like her later in life as far as like being elderly? Do you remember?
No, it mostly just talked about her career in politics after she was one of the cabinet members. Like, she obviously was a prosecutor in courts. I think she ended up becoming a judge. I could be very wrong about that. But like, I should have written them down, but some of the reforms that they mentioned for women and children's rights, like still in place today, still like if I said them, you would know them type of thing. So I'm mad that I didn't write them down, but oh well, no big deal.
I have to give you credit though, because you listened to this last summer, mm-hmm. because you are fully aware of how busy you are. And I think anyone listening who is a teacher mm-hmm. can relate to this. Like, you are extremely busy mm-hmm. during the school year, which is why we have the setup that we do. Mm-hmm. So with that said, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself, but it just wasn't like super clear to me. And I was like, this woman deserves to be known, mm-hmm. which is why I think it's really important that we covered her. Next March, February, we're going to have to be a little bit more mindful and read an easier
book.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
We'll talk about another book.
Yeah. But okay. That's actually really sad that the continuation of not being close, like emotionally close with your family, continued on. Because I did read how her parents were constantly traveling.
Yeah.
She was like, just that can apply to any family. Mm-hmm. But it's sad that trend continued.
I feel like it was a part of the time where you didn't talk about it as a family. You didn't talk about, like with your kids, you didn't say, yeah, I didn't have a great relationship with my parents for this reason, that reason, the other reason. You didn't say that. You just kind of were like, yeah, we're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just kind of went on with life.
Right.
It was just kind of, we're going to portray the happiness and pretend like nothing is wrong.
What a I mean, it still goes on today, but what a toxic way to live.
We are so much better nowadays, where the communication is just there.
Yeah.
we as people are such better communicators.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, I do appreciate that Stephen L. Carter did write this book, so it's on people's radar, but I do hope that, like, this episode and any other, I guess, episodes of podcasts out there that do talk about this, it's so important. Because, like, I have asked some of my coworkers, I'm like, do you know who Eunice Carter is? And they're like, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's like, I wouldn't have never known.
Yeah.
Until you brought this book up whenever we planned this out, I never would have known.
Yeah. And I only known because my favorite murder was like, this is a really good book.
That's right. That's
the only reason why I knew about it. But then again, I started reading and I was like, oh, fuck me.
It's a good story.
But it's very slow.
It's a good story. I'm not going to say it's a good book. It's a good story.
Yeah. And what I can say, so I have Storygraph, which for anyone listening who doesn't know what that is, it is essentially Goodreads, but it's owned independently by a woman of color. Said this by two white women sitting at a table. But what I really like, and granted, I don't have, I think I actually do have Goodreads, but what I really enjoy about Storygraph was it gives you a breakdown of the speed. So, like, when I scanned this in to say, I'm currently reading this, it says 38% of it is medium speed or pace and 61% slow pace.
Yep.
And if I honestly didn't have that, I would have been like, what the fuck is wrong with me? So, I guess, in a way, I hope that more people will be interested in her story. Maybe not necessarily read the book. But we can do a lot of the research for her.
Give her a little recognition.
She deserves recognition, for sure. And that's why we felt like it was important to highlight a woman of color for Black History Month. And that's the thing is, this month has been hard for both of us. I haven't seen you a lot. We've been busy.
We've both been very busy.
But I also think it's really important to remember it is Black History Month and it shouldn't be forgotten. So, nice job.
Oh, thanks.
Nice job.
Oh, thank you. And now on to murder.
Yes. Okay. So, I really felt like Eunice Carter's work had to be highlighted even more.
Sure.
So, I focused on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Okay.
On November 24th, 1897, in a small mining town called Leccara Fridi in Sicily, Italy, Salvatore Luciano was born.
Oh.
He was a Sagittarius, fun fact. His father was a miner.
Those damn Sagittarius.
This is why we get along. Well, you're Scorpio.
I am a Scorpio.
Yes. Damn Sagittarius. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. His father was a miner and worked side jobs, and his mom was a housewife. And he was smack dab in the middle of 5 children. So clearly he got a lot of attention.
Middle child syndrome much?
Yep. When he was 10, the family, along with many other Italian families, immigrated to the Lower East Side of Manhattan, so New York City. And this was me, I don't know what I was thinking, being straight out of Italy. He was unfamiliar with the English language, which proved to be quite challenging in school. Sick of living in poverty, he became a delivery boy before upping his game to mugging, shoplifting, and extortion. So Exhibit A, he bullied younger kids at school to give him their lunch money in exchange for a quote-unquote protection. He did come across one kid named Meyer Lansky who refused to be bullied, and the two would become lifelong friends. By the time he was 14, he had a number of arrests under his belt, and he dropped out of school to live the gangsta lifestyle, which include joining the 5 Points Gang in Manhattan, in which he became a leading member. So I'm going to do a shallow dive because I was like, what the fuck is the 5 Points Gang? I don't know what that is. So it was, the founder was Italian-American Paul Kelly. He was born Paolo Antonio Vicarelli. I find it kind of ironic that you have all these Italians who Americanized their names. It was
that was because of get down.
Luke is like, Mom, let's play. I'm bored.
So that was because when they came over from Italy and came through Ellis Island actually Americanized most of their names. I think that was the Italians. It was the Irish.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many like weird names like that are like, wait, that's almost Italian. Or that's almost Irish or almost Greek. But yeah, when they came through Ellis Island, if they couldn't understand them, then they would just change it.
I think for this case in particular, it's a mixture of both. But why the hell? You know what it is? And I've had other people not criticize me, make fun of me. I did not enjoy history when I was in school.
I didn't either, but that's like one of those random facts that sticks with me.
But I don't remember a lot. And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh shit. I don't know. Maybe if it was presented to me in a way where it actually like
made sense.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm just more mature now. I don't know.
Either is possible because goodness knows, like I hated history as well. So everything that I read for my AP US history class when I was a senior in high school, I'm like, nope, nothing.
I only took AP US history because I wanted to do well in the Regents and I got a 97 on that. So
there you go.
Okay. So the gang was known for its brutality and was involved in robberies, racketeering, and sex work. When it came down to facing down rival gangs, they were known for fighting to the death. Like just,
Mm-hmm.
It was known for having the highest murder rate of any slum in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So for movie lovers out there, it inspired the 2002 movie Gangs of New York, which was directed by Martin Scorsese and starred Daniel Day-Lewis, Leonardo DiCaprio, Cameron Diaz, and Liam Neeson. Do you know that movie?
I feel like I've seen it at least once because Greg and I watched it. Oh,
yeah.
Let me see. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to look up a picture of it just to see because I'm pretty sure I've seen it because it's intense.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it?
I haven't because it's not really usually up my alley, but I just find it interesting that like a true crime story, she saw the visual and she's like, I've seen it.
Yep, I've seen it. It's brutal, man.
Ugh.
It is brutal.
So yeah, this guy was part of that.
Not surprised.
No. So at some point during this time frame, he changed his name to Charles because he thought the nicknames Sal or Sally were not masculine enough.
Okay.
The Roaring 20s is really when he came into his own. In January of 1920, hello, Prohibition, you can go fuck yourself.
Uh-huh.
He was recruited as a gunman to work with Joe the Boss Masseria. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's okay. The head of New York's largest crime family. He did, however, take a break from Joe when he connected with gambler Arnold Rothstein. So my theory is, the theory is he wanted to work with Arnold because Arnold had 2 brain cells when Joe the Boss didn't. Like, that's my theory. Because this guy wasn't stupid.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I can only handle so much stupid before I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Arnold saw the financial catastrophe that prohibition would lead to, and he educated Sal on bootlegging as a business.
Mm-hmm.
Financing from Arnold is how Sal, or Charles, whatever we want to call him, I'm probably just going to call him Sal, got his operation off the ground.
Luciano, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But he would change his last name too.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, Luciana, he changed it to Luciano. Arnold took him under his wing and taught him how to work his way around high society and dress the part. Of course, Sal couldn't help himself when money was involved, and he expanded his operation to drugs. He started smuggling into the U.S. heroin from Montreal. Boo. And in 1923, he was caught as part of a sting operation by undercover agents, but somehow managed to walk away without serving time. So it did tarnish his reputation, but Arnold was able to come to his rescue and salvage it.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just like, I think I'm going to do this.
Mm.
By 1925, he became Joe the Boss's chief lieutenant, which meant directing bootlegging, sex work, narcotics distribution, and more. He was also doing quite well financially, as he was reportedly, I'm old school and printing all these out.
You're good.
Making millions in bootlegging. Specifically, the business was grossing $12 million, and his personal income was $4 million.
Oh, okay.
Must be nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll never say that.
I was to say for 1920s, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And I do want to point out that I don't think it was all that hard for Sal to work his way up the totem pole as quickly as he did.
Mm-hmm.
It said that Joe the Boss was uneducated, had poor manners, and was an awful manager. So
he was like, I'm going to do what I got to do.
Uh-huh.
Here's where the murders start to take place, or are at least talked about.
Mm-hmm.
In November of 1928, Rothstein was gunned down in Central Park and died a day later.
Mm-hmm.
On his deathbed, he refused to tell the police who did it. And upon his passing, Sal went back to work for Joe. And Joe's main rival in the late 20s was a Sicilian mob boss named Maranzano. I don't know. It just reminds me of pasta. I don't know. Maranzano.
Marzipan.
Marzipan.
I see it. It's Italian.
Yes,
it'll remind you of pasta.
Yes, it does. When one of Joe's main lieutenants left to work for Maranzano, there we go, Maranzano, Joe ordered Sal to arrange the lieutenant's murder. That took place on February 26th, 1930, thus starting the
Do your best.
Castelmarazzo. I nailed it. War.
Yes, that one.
Jesus Christ.
We're going to go with it. It's fine.
And so the fun fact, this is the name of a town in Sicily, which is fitting since both of these bosses started their criminal histories in Italy and wanted to honor the quote-unquote old world mafia with principles of honor, tradition, respect, and dignity. And this included refusing to work with non-Italians and even being skeptical of those that were non-Sicilian. So they're like, you have to be from Sicily or else we don't trust you.
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Arguably, this mentality is what caused a shift in Sal. He was after the money and it didn't matter who he worked with to get it. So he formed relationships with younger Italian mobsters who, like him, were born in Italy but started their career in the U.S. His plan was to use what he learned from Arnold to turn their work into a money-making business. So to be clear, his plan was to work with Italian, Irish, and Jewish gangs to pool their resources and have the outcome be beneficial for all.
I was going to say, that's the way to do it if you need bodies.
That's the way he was. He was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm going to do what I got to do to make some money.
Right.
As we all know, at this point, Sal's nickname was Lucky, and there are a variety of theories as to why this is, such as his ability to evade arrest and winning crap games. But I think the following story is the most likely reason. In mid-October of 1929, he was kidnapped in what would later be called the Gangland Ride. He was forced into a limo at gunpoint by 3 men before he had tape put over his mouth and was bound. He was put on the floorboards, beaten, stabbed with an ice pick. Well, beaten and stabbed with an ice pick. Delivery is important. Holy shit. Now, between 2 different sources, this is what I know. The Mob Museum and a book called 5 Families by Selwyn Robb, there are 2 different versions on how this ended. So according to the Mob Museum, after he was stabbed, his throat was slit from ear to ear before he kicked out the window and was knocked unconscious. So he was like...
on death's doorstep.
Yes. According to Robb's book, or AAB, he was strung up by his hand... He was strung up by his hands from a beam in a warehouse on Staten Island. And he'd later be discovered by the police walking around Staten Island Beach with a blood-soaked cloth held to his face. And initially, he didn't want to go to the hospital and offered the cop $50 to get him into cab. He's like,
sounds about right, too.
Screw that. I just want to go home. He was brought to the hospital where he received stitches and bandages to the laceration on his back, cheek, chin, neck, and wrists. And it was at this time that he finally admitted who he was. So robbery was quickly ruled out as he still had valuables on him. And he offered $50 to a doctor so he could get a new shirt after Lucky's blood got onto it. Like, here you go, I ruined your shirt. In 1953, he admitted in an interview that it was the police who kidnapped and beat him in an attempt to find another mobster.
Ooh.
And another theory is that it was Maranzano who ordered the attack. So either way, the fact that he survived is what gave him the nickname Lucky.
Makes sense.
He walked away with a droopy eye and scarring down his cheek, neck, and across his chin, which is understandable. But the fact that he survived, it's like, you're a lucky son of a bitch. Between 1930 and 1931, there was a full-blown mob war between Joe and Maranzano. Now, from what I could find, Lucky turned against Joe and became part of Team Maranzano. Like, he was all over the place.
Okay.
So again, He was all about the money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I wrote this in my notes. I wrote these notes a while ago. Oh, I was supposed to say all about that money. About that money. Oh my God. I'm such a fucking nerd.
Understood.
What was I thinking? And Joe was letting prejudices get in his way. So surprise, surprise, Maranzano ordered a hit on Joe that Lucky helped coordinate in April of 1931. Nope, helped coordinate. Alexa, this fucking jello shot.
You're welcome.
Oh my God. I can't fucking read.
I can go and turn on a light too, because it's getting darker now.
Turn on a light. Oh my God. I'm even wearing my glasses and I'm like, I think I know what this is saying, but it's also getting blurry. Oh my Lord. So in April of 1931, in exchange for receiving rackets and becoming Maranzano's second in command, that was carried out. On April 15th, 1931, when Mazaria and Lucky were playing cards in a Coney Island restaurant, Lucky excused himself to go to the bathroom. And upon his departure, 4 gunmen entered the restaurant and opened fire. Lucky was officially the new leader of Joe's gang. The group would eventually become known as the Genovese family, and he apparently also continued running the group that had been established by Maranzano. Being power-hungry men, Maranzano quickly started viewing Lucky as a threat and hired an Irish gangster to carry out a hit. However, another mobster caught wind of this and alerted Lucky to it. See, all of this was so out of my element. I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, no, the mob is a wild place.
On September 10th, 1931, Maranzano ordered Lucky and other mobsters into his office. Aware of what was about to be happen. I don't understand what my computer did.
Did it change words on you?
Yes, it did.
Oh.
Aware of what was going to happen, Lucky acted first. I apologize.
You're good.
He sent in 4 Jewish gangsters whose faces were unknown to Maranzano's men. They were disguised as government agents and in typical movie form disarmed Maranzano's guards and stabbed him multiple times before shooting him.
Ooh.
This brutal murder would later be known as Night of the Sicilian Vespers. Interesting, as they were Jewish. Lucky would rule the crime world until the mid-1930s. In June of 1935, New York governor appointed, hey, this is a familiar name, Thomas Dewey, as special prosecutor to combat organized crime. And this is when ADA Eunice Carter led the investigation and built her case of sex work found on evidence from interviews with sex workers and wiretaps. So that's like the extent of what I know as far as like her contribution. So I do want to add, I had a few sources. So I will admit I used Wikipedia, but Wikipedia was the only source that was able to like connect all the dots for me. No other source could do that.
Okay.
I looked at the Mob Museum's website out of Las Vegas, history.com, biography.com, Britannica, Encyclopedia of Arkansas. Yeah. So I looked at all of these and I was like, say what? So I do want to take a moment and say Wikipedia and the Mob Museum were the only ones that even mentioned Eunice Carter. So all the credit was given to Thomas Dewey. But according to the Mob Museum website, when Eunice was appointed as prosecutor in Women's Court, aka Court for the Prosecution of Women, especially sex workers, she noticed some interesting details. Women that were arrested for sex work were represented by the same lawyers and bail bondsmen. They all had a relationship with Lucky. So you probably knew that from reading the book anyway, but
yeah, it's one of those things that I don't think I added in, and yeah,
and it's jogging your memory.
but it was like, yeah, that's how she followed the breadcrumbs. It's why is it that person? Why is that person? I know those people. How is that happening?
Yeah. So So I wanted to bring that up again. She brought this info to Dewey and was able to build a case. And they had also established that sex workers were required to kick back half of their earnings to crime bosses in exchange for legal representation.
Yep.
He's after that money. For the sake of giving Eunice more of a shining light, I think it's important to mention that she worked at the DA's office until 1945 before she entered private practice. She was active with the UN, the National Council of Negro Women, and the YWCA until she passed in 1970.
Mm-hmm.
On February 2nd, 1936, as we know, an authorized raid of 200 brothels in Manhattan and Brooklyn were done. And again, measures were taken to prevent police corruption by assigning 160 police officers outside until they received orders minutes before the raids were to begin. 16 men and 87 women were arrested and not released. They were taken to the judge and had minimum bails set at $10,000, more than they could afford.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, Eunice had built up trust with the sex workers and madames and convinced many to testify rather than serve additional jail time. Like, this woman is a friggin' magician. Like,
yeah,
holy
crap. It takes a special person.
Yeah, absolutely. By mid-March, many implicated Lucky and 3 sex workers had identified him as the ringleader. And this is when his world started to crumble. You deserve it, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
As detectives were on their way to his penthouse suite in March of 1936, a desk clerk in his building told him that 2 men who looked like detectives were on their way to see him. Dumbass. Lucky fled and drove to Philly, changing cars, and then borrowed $25,000 from friends before he went to Cleveland, Ohio. He then took the train to Hot Springs, Arkansas, which was a gambling sanctuary run by a fellow gangster.
Mm-hmm.
Was this covered in the book?
No, I don't think so.
After a couple weeks away, he was officially declared public enemy number 1. And fortunately for law enforcement, a New York detective who happened to be in Hot Springs on a different assignment spotted Lucky and notified Dewey.
There you go.
On April 3rd, he was arrested on a criminal warrant and was charged with 90 counts of compulsory prostitution. Sex work, I don't know what the right terminology for it is. I just don't want to be derogatory. I don't know the right terminology, but Lucky's attorney in Hot Springs fought extradition, but after some legal bullshit happened. And on April 17th, Arkansas authorities transferred his custody to NYPD detectives, where he was brought via train to New York City for trial.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't your typical train ride. When they reached St. Louis, Missouri, detectives and Lucky changed trains. And during this transition, 20 local policemen were on guard to prevent a mob rescue attempt.
Makes sense.
Lucky would eventually arrive in New York City, and as we know, was jailed after he failed to post the $350,000 bond set by the judge.
Wow.
On May 11th, 1936, his trial began, and on June 7th, he, along with 8 other co-defendants, were each convicted on 62 counts of compulsory prostitution. And on June 18th, he was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison. So he was first at Sing Sing in Ossining, New York, before being transferred to Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora later in the year.
Oh, we know that place.
So fun fact, did you know in Clinton Correctional Facility, David Berkowitz, or the son of Sam, Tupac, and Robert Garrow, among other notorious criminals,
not surprised,
are serving or did serve time.
I'm not surprised there.
Yeah. And eventually he'd step down as family boss and he was replaced. And this is not the end of the story.
No, of course not.
During World War II, the government needed the mob's help to keep New York docks free of strikes, sabotage, and other chaos. This was covered in the book.
No, I remember this from
history class.
From history class. Like, this is a vague, oh yeah, they had to do that.
Lucky agreed to help them on the term that he get a break in his sentence.
Yeah.
Dewey, which we know became New York governor, granted clemency.
Mm-hmm.
In 1946, he was in the free and clear and promptly deported back to Sicily. He didn't stay in Italy long before he traveled to Cuba in 1947. It was here he met up with a childhood friend, Lansky, and another mobster. However, he was soon sent back to Italy, where he was closely monitored. He didn't give up his life of crime, but I don't honestly give a shit enough to go into detail about that.
No.
I was like, we're here about what he did in New York City. It's fine.
Yep.
In 1948, he met a ballerina who he would go on to say was the love of his life, and the two lived in his home in Naples, Italy. They would never marry and never had children. He'd go on to consider sharing his life story, and in a twist of fate, in January of 1962, he went to the Naples airport to meet a film and TV producer where he suffered a fatal heart attack.
Wow.
Despite being banned from the U.S., and I don't know how this would work, his family in the country fought to get his body brought back. A funeral was done in Naples before he was eventually buried in St. John Cemetery in New York City under the name Salvatore Luciano.
Interesting.
And that is Lucky Luciano's story and why Eunice Carter's
did what she did.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
This was probably, granted, I got sick like as I was starting to do this, so I had to take a step back. But this was probably the hardest case I've done so far because it was so confusing.
Yeah, it's so old.
Well, it's so old, and then it's like kind of like the book, how it goes left field and right field and all over the place. That's kind of how his life
was. A lot of little details.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. Eunice Carter brought that guy.
There's that
guy down. Happy Black History Month. We did it.
We did it. Didn't really think it was going to happen, but we did it.
Yes.
Holy smokes.
Oh my gosh. February has definitely been a wild month. But I am going to say, I am so excited for March.
Well, duh. We both just got the third book in the Butcher and Blackbird series, which is what we're covering in March. Excited.
Yeah. Hold on. Do you want me to bring up the description for one of them?
Oh, supposed to do that. That's my bad. Do I have them? Hang on. Let me go look at my shelf.
You do have them. Stand by.
Stand by. Stand by one. My other book might be downstairs. Okay. So here's our recaps for all three because we now have the third one. And it's
so excited.
So first one. Yet? Oh, goodness. No, I'm reading the Rose Code right now.
Oh, okay.
Trying to not read too many books at the same time. So first one, Butcher and Blackbird. Every serial killer needs a friend. Every game must have a winner. When a chance encounter sparks an unlikely bond between rival murderers Sloane and Rowan, they find something elusive, the friendship of two like-minded, pitch-black souls who just happen to enjoy killing other serial killers. From small-town West Virginia to upscale California, and from downtown Boston to rural Texas, the two hunters collide in an annual game of blood and suffering, one that pits them against the most dangerous monsters in the country. But as their friendship develops into something more, the restless ghosts left in their wake are only a few steps behind, ready to claim more than just their newfound love. So that's the first one. It tells the story of our first two. The next one, Leather and Lark. After contract killer Lachlan Kane botches a job for his boss's big client, he knows he'll never claw his way out of the underworld. At least not until Songbird, Lark Montag, offers him a deal. Hunt down a killer, and she'll secure his freedom. The catch? He has to marry her, and they can't stand each other. Indie singer-songwriter Lark is the sunshine that burns through the darkness Lachlan Kane tries to hide behind. Lachlan might think Lark is just a privileged princess, but the truth is that she keeps plenty of secrets. With her formidable family in a tailspin and her best friend's happiness on the line, Lark's willing to make a vow to the man she's determined to hate, no matter how tempting the broody assassin might be. As Lachlan and Lark navigate the mission that binds them together, it becomes impossible to discern their fake marriage from a real one. But the restless ghosts left in their wake are only a few steps behind, ready to claim more than just their newfound love. Number 2, and this is a cold read of this last one. I have not read the back of this one yet. So, Dr. Fionn Kane is running from a broken heart, one he hopes to mend in small-town Nebraska, far away from his almost fiancée and his derailed surgical career. It's a simpler life, head down, hard work, and absolutely no romantic relationships. He wants none of the circus he left behind in Boston. But then the real circus finds him. Motorcycle performer Rose Evans has spent a decade on the road with the Silveria Circus, and it suits her just fine, especially when she has the urge to indulge in a little murder when she is not in the spotlight. But when a kill goes awry and she ends up with a broken leg, Rose finds herself stuck in Nebraska at the home of the adorably nerdy town doctor. The problem is, not every broken heart can be sewn back together, and the longer you stay in one place, the more likely your ghosts will catch up.
I'm about 50 pages into that book. I started it last night, and I was like, oh, I missed this fun quick read.
These are quick reads.
Yeah.
I was impressed at how quick they were when I started reading them.
Yes. So for those who haven't heard of these books, please note there are disclaimers at the beginning of each book. Dark humor is the way that we kind of keep it from getting a little bit too overdone. But everyone I've recommended it to has been like, oh my God, this is so good. Oh my God, this is so good.
I want to read the
the disclaimers.
The disclaimer in the front. Content and trigger warnings. So we'll read you all these because these are actually a lot of fun.
Yes, they are.
These are fun. So this is back to Butcher and Blackbird, the very first one. As much as Butcher and Blackbird is a dark romantic comedy and will hopefully make you laugh through the madness, it's still dark. Please read responsibly. If you have questions about this list, please don't hesitate to contact me at brynweaverbooks.com or on one of my social media platforms. I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok. So these are included in the story: eyeballs and eye sockets, amateur surgery, skin ornaments, chainsaws, axes, knives, scalpels, a lot of sharp objects, accidental cannibalism, not so accidental cannibalism, questionable use of a mummified corpse, lobotomized manservant, ill-advised use of kitchen implements. I'm sorry about the cookies and cream ice cream. I'm not really. Detailed sex scenes, which include but are not limited to cock-warming, rough sex, praise kink, anal, adult toys, choking, spitting, dom-sub interactions, genital piercings. References to parental neglect and child abuse, parental loss not depicted, references to child sexual assault not in detail. It's a book about serial killers, so there's some generally messed up murder and chaos.
We're so fucked up.
Those are fun.
It's so good.
They're fun. They're just fun.
Oh, man. Okay, well, this was fun, but you got things to do. I got things to do.
We gotta go.
Yes, we nailed it.
Under an hour, look at that.
Good job.
Break.
Cool. All right. Well, please make sure you subscribe because that way we know we don't suck. But how can people find us, Alexa? We can be found on the gram at Books Booze Murder. We can be found on YouTube at Books Booze Murder. We can be found on Spotify at Books Booze Murder. And we can be found on TikTok at Books Booze Murder Pod. Nailed it. And until next time, bye-bye.
Toodles.